Heard you need more FPS. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Chamber here, and today I will be showing you how to max out your Warzone 2 FPS. Going over driver settings for both NVIDIA and AMD, some Windows things you can do that work on Windows 10 and 11, as well as in-game settings, and I will even be dropping a custom config for you guys just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to tell you what's the best way to go over kind of how to get the FPS, what you need to be looking for. We're going to be going over and explaining the built-in benchmark for Modern Warfare 2, which is honestly an amazing thing. Good job, Activision. That's really going to help a lot of people with upgrading their systems, making sure they're purchasing the right hardware. Now, let's get into it. But first, let me tell you a little bit about my service and another way to get more FPS. After following my guide, if you are still looking for more FPS, I do offer an FPS boosting PC optimization service. In my service, I will make sure that you have a maxed out CPU and GPU. I will be using overclocking. I even recommend the best upgrades for you to do on your PC, making sure everything is 100% stable. And to celebrate the launch of Warzone 2, you can go to my Shopify link, add it to cart, and if you want to go into the discount code section and use code Warzone2, you will get 10% off, making this, instead of $100, $90. I can promise you this will not be going on for long. This will be ending on the 19th of November. That will be the last day for the discount. Now, I am expecting prices to increase when Warzone 2 launches after this deal, just because of the amount of demand I am currently already having. So if you are interested in my service, get it while it's at a discounted rate. And now let's get into how to boost your FPS. Now, before we get any farther and actually start the optimizations, I just want to go to your Modern Warfare benchmark. Now, you want to hit start. Once you get into it, you scroll down one, it's on the right, and we're just going to go through and look at a benchmark score. Now, what this is, it's going to give us a baseline. This is going to allow us to see, okay, what FPS are we getting right now? And at the end of the video, you can compare. Now, I'm going to come back when I get my results and talk about it a little bit more. So I finished the benchmark. I'm averaging 371 FPS right now on the PC. Now, this is what we're going to look at: the low fifth and low first. You want these as high as you can get them. That is honestly the most important numbers. Now, we also have CPU and GPU performance here. Now, what I want you to look at is I want you to look at the bottleneck percentages. Whichever one is higher is the weaker component in the CPU and the PC. So for me, that is my CPU. I have a 12700K, and for GPU, I have an RTX 4090. Both are overclocked and fully tuned. Now, even at 1440p, which is infamously known for being GPU bound, I am CPU bound. So this just shows you want to run this benchmark and see what is limiting you the most. Now, how to remove a CPU bottleneck is just obviously a faster CPU or faster RAM as well, GPU, overclocking it, and a new GPU. Now it's time to go fully into optimizing your FPS. Also, start a comment down below telling me what your average FPS is right now at the start of the video. At the end, we're going to run that benchmark again and let me know what you're getting at after. We are going to start off by going over NVIDIA GPU settings. Now, so this obviously, we're going to be starting off with the driver that you want to be using. Now, the oldest driver I would recommend is 522.25. That is the oldest one I would recommend. Older ones might have some issues. One you want to 100% stay away from, like it's the plague, is 526.47. This has very weird corruption, white flashes on the screen, something you do not want in Modern Warfare 2. It makes the game unplayable. The driver 526.86 fixes all these issues, and this is the driver I am using. Now, there is one more driver that is not listed on here, and that is a hotfix driver 526.61. Now, we're going to go over performance real quick, but it's basically all the same. What I'm going to recommend is just start with 526.86. If you have any weird issues, go to 526.61. And if once again you have issues still with that, go to 522.25. I'll leave a link down below in the description to where to get all of these drivers here. Once you install them and update your drivers, then we're going to have to go into your NVIDIA control panel and go over some settings. When you're on an NVIDIA GPU, one thing you want to do is you want to right click your desktop. You want to go to the display settings. Now in your Windows control settings, you want to hit graphics settings and you want to check hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. This will give you a little bit more performance. On Windows 10, if you're using OBS, you may have issues. It has been mostly resolved, but if once you enable this setting, restart your PC. If you are still having issues, if you start having issues, just turn this off. It does give an FPS boost, but obviously crashing in OBS, something you're going to be recording with, is not something you want to happen. Now, NVIDIA control panel time. All right, so to get to your NVIDIA control panel, you can search it up. I like to right click my desktop, open up NVIDIA control panel here. Now we're going to start off, just change resolution. Make sure you max out your monitor's refresh rate here. You might have to scroll down to PC. It might not show up correctly in Ultra HD, but on PC it should. You just want to make sure you are at the highest refresh rate possible. Obviously, it's going to give you the lowest refresh rate. If you have something like G-Sync showing up here, if you want to have that on, you can. It might add a little bit of input delay, but it is okay. Starting off with configure surround BizX tab, you want to make sure that your processor here is set to your GPU. You don't want it set to anything else. You want it set to your GPU. Next up, we're going to go to adjust image settings with preview. You want to hit use my preference, emphasizing, and you want to click it all the way to the left and choose performance and hit apply in the bottom right. Next, we're going to go to manage 3D settings. Now this is a list that you'll see a lot. Vulkan OpenGL present method. This is actually something that does not affect Modern Warfare 2, but just while you're here, just click prefer native. Vertical sync, make sure this is off. Threaded optimization, you want to have this on. This is going to allow it to use more cores for the game and as well for the driver. So that's a big deal. Texture filtering quality, you want to set this to high performance. This gives a little bit of FPS boost while having no quality difference visible to the eye. I cannot notice a difference, and I've pixel peeped and I cannot notice a difference. Shader cache size, just leave this to driver default if you wanted to. I guess you could set this to unlimited, but I've had no issues just leaving this on default, so I just leave it there. Preferred refresh rate, if you have G-Sync or G-Sync compatible, it's going to show up there, but for me, I'm going to hit highest available. Power management modes, just click prefer maximum performance and allow your GPU to boost a little bit higher. OpenGL rendering mode doesn't really matter, but let's just set it to your GPU. Prefer performance here. Actually, no, just leave this on auto. This is not something we're going to be dealing with in game, so just don't worry about it. If you want to cap your frame rate in here, I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you wanted to, you could. Low latency mode, just leave this on off. We're going to be setting NVIDIA Reflex in the game. That's going to override this, so no point in changing it here. Next up, gamma correction. You want to set this to off and hit apply. Now, one thing I have seen is that you can force anti-aliasing off through programs finding Modern Warfare 2. It is not worth it. There isn't really an FPS difference. If there is, I will make a new video coming out soon if I do figure out that it is a massive boost. But for right now, it is not a massive difference. So once you've hit apply in the bottom right corner, you want to go back to adjust image settings or preview and make sure it is set to use the advanced 3D image settings. That's going to make sure that it is actually using these settings you have set and not letting the 3D application decide or using a preference. That's just going to be a lot easier. Now we can close out of here. If you want to overclock your GPU or just get a little more in-depth NVIDIA GPU guide, you can actually look at these two videos here. I will put them up in the top right of the screen here, the ultimate NVIDIA GPU guide, as well as how to overclock your NVIDIA GPU. These two will just help you get a little bit more out of your GPU. Now, for people using an AMD GPU, you're going to want to go to AMD drivers. Just Google it up. It's amd.com/en for English/support. Now we're going to get to our drivers tab. Now, search for your product. So let's say that I have my 6900 XT in here. You want to hit submit. Just click the GPU you have. Windows 10 or 11. It does not matter. These are both the exact same driver, but I'm using Windows 10 here. Now, there are a couple of drivers here. So to stay away from the Pro Edition, the recommended, that might seem like the good option right now, but that is not what I'm going to recommend. It is very old. You actually want to use 22.10.3, and then you want to set, this one has, as you can see, support for Modern Warfare 2. And obviously, if you do have any issues, though, do go to the recommended driver, but I am going to recommend the optional for you guys. When you install this driver, I would highly recommend either setting a full install or the minimal install. The driver only. The minimal only install I found has some weird issues at times, and I actually get lower FPS with the minimal driver versus the bare driver or the full install actually. So once you've installed the driver, now we're going to go over some AMD settings. Now I have a little handy dandy picture for you guys. This is in the graphics tab. You want to go, this is what you're going to want to change. Always off for VSync. VSync is terrible, adds a bunch of latency you don't want. Texture filtering quality, set this to performance. Tessellation mode, you want to check to override application settings. And then maximum tessellation level, set that to off. These do not cause any weird visual errors. I used it on my 6900 XT for months and had no issues at all. If you are on the full driver and you are not using the clipping software, so Radeon, whatever they call their clipping software, I'd highly recommend just disabling that and disabling everything else in there. It's not really that big of a deal, but we've gone over AMD GPU's driver settings are very easy. Now let's go over some Windows settings to help boost your FPS. All right, so we're going to start off by right click personalize. This is going to bring us to some personalization settings. Colors. Turn off transparency effects. This uses a little bit of your GPU, just something you don't want happening in games. You don't want your GPU being used by a transparent taskbar, as you can see down here at the bottom, that really could just be turned off and you're not going to notice it. Next up, you're going to want to go to the gaming tab. I do not have it right here. Let's actually turn on the display capture here for you guys. As you can see, here's my little script. You want to go to gaming, Xbox game bar, and you want to make sure that game bar is turned off. This is the same thing on Windows 10 and 11, just does look a little bit different. And then game mode as well, you want to have game mode on. This is going to help you. If you're on an older Windows version, which I hope you are not because Modern Warfare 2 will not open, you want to make sure this is set though to game mode on. That is going to help your FPS just slightly. Now back to the gaming PC here. We're going to want to go to the privacy tab. Just scroll down. You're going to find background apps. Turn this off. We don't want things running in the background, especially in the middle of a game. You don't want a Windows update to come in and be like, oh, hey, let's start downloading this update. And then you have ping issues and all this stuff. So that's a big one. Next, update and security, delivery optimization. Uncheck allow downloads from other PCs. We do not want to have you don't want to try and help other PCs download updates. You don't want other PCs transferring updates. You don't want to update things at all while you are gaming. Now, another thing we're going to do is we want to hit Windows key and R. You're going to open up this little run panel. Just type in control. You're going to go to around here and you want to hit hardware and sound, power options. Now, there's going to be a couple of options. For you, it will most likely be set to balanced. I'd highly recommend setting to high performance. If you do have it though, just set ultimate performance. High performance and ultimate performance are basically the same. There's going to be no real FPS difference. So I would just recommend just setting it to either one of these. This does give a little bit more CPU performance for you guys. Now on to config settings. So for you guys, I'm going to drop a paste bin down below. It's going to have everything you need for the config. I'd highly recommend just copying it. And then you want to go to Windows key and E. You're going to want to open up the documents folder, Call of Duty, players, and it'll be options.3.cod22.cst. You're going to open it up. It might come with a pop-up. How would you want to open this? Open this with Notepad. It will work, no problems. Now this will set a couple of settings that are mine. Let me go over some of the things that it does. Actually, let's just copy and paste it over. So all you'll do is you'll open it. Let's say this is the paste bin. Just hit Control A. You just want to make sure everything in the paste bin is highlighted. Everything for the config, Control C. Then you want to hit Control A, Control V. Now it will fully copy it. Now here's a couple of things I want you to look at. So this will set your audio things. One thing, async compute. I have seen people say that async compute false is better. This is not what I have seen. If you do want to try it, feel free to go ahead and test with the benchmark. But in every PC I've tested, setting this to true does perform slightly better. We want to be in full screen mode. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit less input lag. NVIDIA Reflex, most of you guys will be GPU bound, so that's why I've set enabled. We'll go back into the benchmark and talk about that. Refresh rate and resolution I set blank, so that is set by your monitor when you go in. VSync obviously off. Anti-aliasing set to low. Everything is basically set to all low. That's just what I recommend. There is one setting here. Let me find it here. It is texture filtering. You can set texture underscore filter nearest instead of texture underscore filter underscore linear. It does give just a little bit more FPS boost. Nothing insane. Nothing I'm like, oh yeah, I need this. But obviously, if you want to, you can. But I'm just going to recommend keeping it at linear for you guys. But now we're going to go in. Actually, sorry. Let's scroll down a little bit more. One thing, render worker count. If you are on a Intel AMD system, anything except for a 12th or 13th gen Intel CPU, here's what you're going to want to do. You want to find your cores and logical processors, and you want to divide this by 2 and add 1. So let's say I had a 5950X AMD CPU, 16 cores. You want to do 16 divided by 2, which is 8, add 1, 9. Now, if you're on a 12th or a 13th gen though, you want to leave this on an auto number and just let it figure out. That's when it's going to perform better. Now for me, the half plus 1 rule does work, setting it to 5. That's actually what the game auto sets for me. But if you're on a newer CPU, just feel free to leave this at auto. Anything else though, set this to half your cores plus 1. Now let's go into the game. Before we actually go into the game, we are going to restart our PCs. This is going to make sure that any changes we have set, driver, Windows, all that stuff is actually happening. So just restart the PC. Then we're going to actually now go into the Modern Warfare 2 game and just run a benchmark. Now here we are back in Modern Warfare 2. So we're going to start off by going to the graphics tab. You're going to start off with the display. Just make sure you have the correct display monitor. Also at the same time, you have the correct screen refresh rate and display resolution. Make sure that's all maxed out for you guys. Quality, we're just going to scroll down through everything. We're not going to actually touch anything in here. The only thing you want to touch on an NVIDIA GPU, obviously, is NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency. If you remember, do you guys remember in the benchmark earlier before, if you have on plus boost, this means that you are CPU bound. So if you have a higher bottleneck in your CPU, set this to on plus boost. If you have a higher GPU bound, you want to set this to on. And to be honest, if they're pretty close, maybe they're like 50-50 or something, just set it to on. That's like your best bet typically. But FPS is basically about the same. One thing I'm going to say for my AMD users, go back to your config, go to Documents, Call of Duty, Players, Options 3. You want to scroll down till you find this COD NVIDIA Reflex. Set this to disabled. Copy and paste the disabled from right here to over here. You're going to have to close out your game and reopen it back up. I've seen NVIDIA Reflex do weird things when it is enabled by default in a game. Set it to disabled if you're on an AMD GPU. Should help you a little bit. But now it is time for the benchmark. So remember, scroll down, open the benchmark, hit start, and now we're going to see what your final benchmark result is. Finish running the benchmark. I'm getting the exact same FPS. I was already maxed out, but now I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If this video did help you guys, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe down below. Really helps the channel. We're trying to grow. Obviously, if you want anything else for me to test in Warzone 2 to get more FPS, maybe you have some ideas, let me know down below in the comments, as well as join my Discord. Also, remember, if you have not already, comment your before and after FPS. Let me see how much it helped you guys. Also, if you're still looking for more, go ahead and take a look at my service. Remember, code Warzone2 for 10% off for a limited time. But I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you guys later. Peace.